Good evening to you. On today's business segment on the ballot brief, we ask whether South Africa should have a common political economic agenda given the current climate. This comes up as the bulk of social issues are tied to economic challenges and policy is required from the political leadership to be elected as decision makers. Economist Redge Nkosi joins us for this conversation. A warm welcome to you, Redge. Does or should South Africa have a political economic agenda in this current environment where economic challenges prevent progress in growth, unemployment, and addressing inequality?
Absolutely. There's no doubt. This is certainly what we should have been discussing maybe a year before the elections, so that by now we should have in fact understood where we're going. Because right now we don't know, whoever comes into power, we don't know what it is that they're going to tell us. And the manifestos are not very clear. And whether those manifestos talk to the entire South Africa, we don't know. So this political and economic agenda would, in fact, have been quite appropriate and apt a while back indeed. But nonetheless, it's not late. We can, in fact, begin to do that just right now as we enter the elections, perhaps immediately after the elections.
Allow me to ask this. Where is the lack of clarity in the election manifestos for the political parties that are in reality contesting the space from the governing ANC to the official opposition being the DA as well as the EFF and the new entrants, the likes of Rise Mzansi, Busa and the rest?
Well, maybe on the political side is a bit clear, but from the economic side, I'm afraid the agenda is quite murky. Each one of them has got their own understanding of how the economy functions, and they're suggesting this and that. So you have the ANC, which essentially says we should continue with what we've been doing, is quite fine. And, we'll be creating some job opportunities. You have the DA, a major opposition party, saying, well, okay, not as good. So it's all over. The EFF on its own has got another agenda, which is perhaps not the agenda that the ANC would like to see or the DA would like to see. So where's the common national agenda for the economy? None whatsoever, apart from ramblings about how the economy is going to create jobs. But again, when you ask them how many jobs, they give you the numbers, and you look at what is placed on the paper, frankly, no such numbers would be possible. So there we are. We have political parties telling us they're going to do this and that. Meanwhile, they're coming from all manner of angles, which angles, I'm afraid, do not make a great deal of sense from the economic perspective.
With that said, given South Africa's top three economic challenges, of course, inequality, unemployment, as well as poverty, what should or would a political agenda that is common or within a uniform spectrum look like for this country? Dare I liken it to the so-called Rainbow Nation agenda that we had in the dawn of South Africa's democracy?
That looks quite an interesting one. But I think the way an agenda would be framed, perspective is first and foremost, we identify the challenges that confront us. We challenge would, in this instance, be unemployment, poor growth, poverty, of course. These would be the fundamental ones. So we do not have good administrative stroke. Political governance is lacking. And of course, economic governance is not there. So issues will revolve around the major issues of growth, unemployment, poverty. But again, governance. There isn't any leadership in the country which is taking us anywhere forward. Maybe that could as well be an area we have to look at.
How then would you respond to coalition politics maybe being what would be the dictator of a uniform economic policy in South Africa? Should we even get there at a national level? At this point, what we've seen is the challenges that have been faced at a local level point of view.
I wouldn't put my money on that. Remember, if, for example, the ANC gets, say, 40 or 30, whatever, it goes into alliance with some party. Let's, for example, the bigger one, DA. if they're going to hammer out, the two of them, a national agenda, a political and economic or social, what do you expect from them? As an example, the ANC would think the current policy regime is okay, which is a right-wing policy regime. The DA, which also supports this particular right-wing regime, would say, okay, let's add some bit of right-wing to it. The consequences would be ghastly to contemplate. So you cannot, I think, leave this for the political parties, the coalitions that will be formed from there to dictate policy for the country or an agenda for the country. It will be disastrous. In my view, the best way forward would be to organize political parties, civil society, professionals in various fields, churches as well must come together, and so on. These must congregate together, then begin to hammer out a national agenda, political, economic, and so on, and social as well. Otherwise, leaving it to the parties would be disaster, as I've just given examples for the ANC and the DA.
Thank you so much for your input. Redge Nkosi is an economist with the First Source Money. They're talking to us in our election focus on the ballot brief right here on the business desk as we tackle the issue of a common political economic agenda in South Africa.